toss high for more time. So how high is too high? So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 common mistakes to avoid which may be preventing you from developing a great serve. Now often we're told to toss high so we have more time. The problem is if you toss too high, you now have to wait for the ball to come down, right? So what happens is we then end up either developing a stop in the motion. Also, the higher you toss, the more variance you have, the further the ball will get away from you. So you have to make more adjustments with your body. So generally speaking, you actually want to toss lower. And Vic Braden proved we have more time when you hit the ball more towards the apex, right? But simply put, when the ball's falling from a higher distance, it's gaining speed. So it moves through that window of your racket very quickly. So you have to have impeccable timing. Now, if you hit the ball at the apex, the ball actually slows down and stops and then accelerates. So you have 9 times the time. However, they have proven in research that you actually want the ball to drop a little bit. When the ball is dropping slightly, you have opposing forces. The ball's coming down, the racket's going up. It gives the ball a small degree of forward rotation. So even if you had a flat serve or slice serve, it still has a degree of forward rotation, which increases your margin for safety. So how high should you toss the ball? Well, if you get up on your tiptoes and you look at the outstretched arm and racket, you want to be just beyond the height of your reach. So you can be anywhere from 6 to 12 inches above that and find something that's comfortable for you. But generally speaking, you want to go a little bit slower with the tossing arm so your toss is not excessively high, and that way you don't have to program your swing to find the ball, but also you may find it's a little bit easier to make cleaner contact because the ball is moving slower. So when you're working your serve, just slow the tossing arm down and just toss a little bit beyond your outstretched arm and racket. Now the second common mistake to avoid is swinging up to contact with an open racket face. Now there is sometimes a misconception where people think a flat serve is a serve where the ball doesn't rotate at all, right? What happens is if you swing up with an open racket face, you actually imply underspin in the ball, so the ball tends to float. And this is where people get into trouble because when they start to get pressured by the returner, they want to add more power to the serve, but the problem is the ball starts to float long, so then they start to try to decelerate, and that's when things go wrong, all right? So you want to avoid swinging up with an open racket face. Now, the reasons for that, number one, the way we see the tennis court, this makes the most sense, is you simply just point the strings of the ball and swing towards your target. The other thing is sometimes people have the wrong grip. They more want a forehand grip. So ideally, you want to be on bevel number 2, which would be a continental grip, serve grip, or for those of you who are making a grip transition, you can be on this ridge right here. So this is bevel 3, Neeson forehand. This is bevel 2, continental. This ridge right here is 2.5. And I do find if you take your 2 reference points, your heel pad, right here, the left heel pad, and the base knuckle, and you place it on those 2 reference points. So more advanced, you're on bevel 2, continental. If you are making a grip change from an Eastern backhand or forehand grip, you can go 2.5 and then slowly make the full change, right? So that's the first thing. Then what I want you to do is I want you to just kind of work on pronation. So what you can do is start with your thumb like this, and I like to have the knuckles up a little bit. And what you want to do is you want to extend the arm to contact. As you do that, it's like a karate chop going into a high 5. You see how my thumb is to the side slightly, it's not up here. So I'm rotating high 5, and then when I'm done, I relax the shoulders so the thumb is down, right? So you can do this over and over. So you got your thumb down, knuckles up a little bit, and you want to come up to the ball like a karate chop as you then rotate through the shoulder and the forearm to high 5 the ball, thumb on the inside, and then you point the thumb down. So you can do that over and over. Then you can choke up on your racket with your continental grip, all right, or close to it, and you can do what I call a half pipe drill, where you can slide your strings, grazing the ball like this or glancing it, and then turning the racket back. Because what you're doing down here is very similar to what you need to be doing as you lead with the edge of the racket to contact. Because ideally, you want to lead with the edge and not with the open racket face. So you start with this drill here where you come down, hitting the right edge of the ball. You can hear that sound as I'm grazing the ball right here. And you do that over and over. And then from there, you can set up on your racket drop nice and close to the net. Ideally, you get your elbow up, and you want to go up with the elbow, then you extend the arm like that karate chop. You high-five the ball, and then you finish with your thumb down. Some of you may finish, and you want to make sure your strings are facing your knees. So start on your racket drop like this. Keep the tossing arm up. And hit. And whatever you do down here, you're trying to mimic up to contact, leading with the edge of the racket. So that's the second common thing that we see. So you can work through those drills to help avoid that from happening to you. Now, a third common problem we see is over-rotation on the serve, all right? That's where players hit the serve and they over-rotate the upper body. Now, often they think they're getting more power by doing that, by muscling it, and also they may use the upper body to direct the serve. Now, the problem with over-rotation is that it makes it very difficult for a right-handed player to hit the serve down the tee. So serving to the backhand of a right-handed player, especially in doubles, is very difficult because the body is pulling the ball to the middle of the court. So it makes it very difficult to direct, and you lose service options. And against a good player, they're going to know that, and they're just going to keep sneaking over to their right because they know you cannot serve to the left. The other thing too, we may think we get more power by opening up a body. The thing is, we are recruiting muscle. When you stay slightly sideways, right? When your hitting shoulder is slightly behind your tossing shoulder, when you stop this left side, your right side will accelerate, they say about 1.5 times faster than you can recruit the muscles. So you can get some more effortless power. So now how do you work on it? How do you prevent that from happening? Now, a real simple way of fixing this is by going wrist to wrist, where your hitting hand or hitting wrist is crossing your tossing wrist, and it's on the hitting side of your body. If you look from the side, it's also slightly in front of you. Now, I know it's an over-exaggeration, but it just helps you to keep that tossing arm up, because what happens is most people just drop the tossing arm. Now, your arm weighs between 12 to 14 pounds. So you can imagine a 12 to 14 pound dumbbell doing this. What's that going to do to your body, and in turn, what will it do to your swing? So by going wrist to wrist, it's just a simple way to think about it, where you're going hitting wrist over tossing wrist, like this, and then you're going to finish more arm over arm, where you kind of make this letter X to the side. Now you want to make it to the right side, so you don't over-rotate. So it looks something like this. So you're going to go wrist to wrist, letter X. That's something I learned from Steve Smith, which has been very, very effective, right? So you can do a lot of shadow swings like that, where you shadow, keep the tossing arm up, you go wrist to wrist, arm over arm, or letter X to the side, right? So right-hand players, your letter X will be to your right. Lefties, when you go wrist to wrist here, your arm over arm or letter X will be pointing towards the left, right? So do a lot of shadow swings, and then you can simply hit some easy serves. I like to choke up initially. Think wrist to wrist, letter X. A lot of times people are afraid of hitting the arms. It doesn't happen too often. Most times we end up moving this arm out of the way, and we're going arm over arm. So you can go this nice and easy, wrist to wrist, arm over arm. Now as you do that, make sure when you go wrist to wrist and you make the letter X, you relax the shoulders. A lot of people, when they first start doing it, they kind of tighten their shoulders, but you can do it in a way where your shoulders stay nice and loose and relaxed. Eventually you want to get to the point that when you're striking the ball, your tossing arm is in towards your stomach, across like this, so the weight of that doesn't cause you to open up too much, but also you create this nice stopping effect. It acts as what we call a reactive brake, where now you stop the front side and the hitting side can now speed up. But ultimately as well, when you have less moving parts, it helps improve your serve consistency and accuracy. Now, a fourth common problem we see is when players go too fast in the beginning. Now what that does is it sends the racket too far back, and it prevents them from then developing a good right to left. Right to left is when you bend from the elbow and the racket moves from right to left over your head from the hitting side of your body to the non-hitting side, right? Now what happens is when people go too fast at the beginning, they end up doing something like this. Now we would see it with Roger Federer, he goes much further back, but the difference is he does this now. So when you go fast, it can result in an inaccurate high toss, and it really can prevent you from developing that good right to left. So when you are serving, you actually want to go slower in the beginning here, because this has almost nothing to do with the power supply, right? You just simply tossing the ball and setting yourself up to then begin your swing and begin uncoiling your body. So you want to go slow in the beginning and then start to speed up. So we say it's like a slow as you bend the elbow and coil, it's a medium, and then as you're coming out of the racket drop, it's fast. So it's a slow, medium, fast, right? So that's another thing that you want to be aware of. You don't want to be going too fast in the beginning, and really avoid starting up high with all down together, up together, because that's going to make it very difficult to then develop a great serve, because you have the inability, most likely have a good right to left. And then when you don't have a good right to left, it's very difficult to then have a good racket drop. So that's a key thing to remember. You don't want to go too fast in the beginning. You want to go slow in the beginning and then slowly start to accelerate. So it's more of a slow, medium, fast. Now, a fifth common problem to avoid in developing a good serve is having a tight hitting arm. And a lot of people, they have this death grip, all right, and they have this jaws of life, they like hanging onto the grip like this. The problem is when you grip down too tightly, not only can it possibly lead to an injury, right, but it really prevents your ability to really develop a nice fluid motion in the serve, where you can then bend the elbow and almost rely on gravity and rotation to help you get into your racket drop. When your arm is tight like that, your arm's simply not going to bend, and you're going to not get into those key power positions. So what you want to do is you want to have a nice loose hitting arm. Okay, and keep in mind, when you do work in mechanics, you will be a little bit tighter, but once you start to get the mechanics right, you want to make sure you're loosening up. So one thing you can do is use the looseness dial, and that's where you can grip down your racket. Now be careful, but if you grip down it tightly, as tight as you can, don't have to do that, but that would be level number 10. Level number 1 would be barely hanging on. So when you're serving, you want to be around about a level 3, all right, as far as looseness goes, right? Other thing that can help you too, and this is a little more advanced, but if you are quite tight and you have a decent serve, you can actually hold the racket further down to almost to the point where the pinky is flush with the butt cap. So it's in here. Now that's more advanced, but that definitely will help you to be a little bit looser. But I will say this, if you are working mechanics, that's going to make it difficult to control the racket. So generally when people are kind of working mechanics, they may be a little bit higher up. But then if you're at that point, you can start to move the racket down, or the grip down, all right? Now, the other thing to look out for is, if you look at a lot of great servers, they kind of start with this nice position with the wrist. They have a double bend, so elbow, wrist, and you actually see the string face is actually pointing upwards, right? It's actually open at this point. And what that does, it just gets you into a nice kind of loose arm position here. The problem is a lot of players, especially in the recreational level, they actually start with this racket turned down, and there's a bend in the back of the wrist. And if you just try this right now at home, when you do that, you'll feel your whole arm tighten, right? If you do the opposite, you turn the racket strings up and you relax, make a bend in the front of the wrist, bending the elbow, you'll feel how your whole arm starts to relax and stay loose. So that's one thing you want to check when you're lining up for your serve. Number one, your grip pressure, where are you out of 10? Try to get close to a 3. And then you want to make sure, am I doing this to start my serve, or am I more like that? That's going to help you be looser. So when you turn back, you want to have this look rather than that look. And then very often, when you start like this, your racket will naturally open. But actually, when you start with the racket slightly open here, it actually helps close the racket as the racket crosses your head. So those are 5 common problems that may be preventing you from developing a good serve. Certainly there are more problems that people encounter. Those are 5 common ones. And the first one, remember, you want to avoid an excessively high toss, right? You just want to basically toss just beyond the outstretched arm and racket. That way, it's easier to control the toss, and you're not having to adjust your body or your swing to find the ball, because the ball won't deviate as far. The second one is you want to start to develop a serve where you're starting to lead with the edge of the racket, all right? Where you start to then pronate up to contact. You want to make sure that you are developing more of a service grip. So if you're not on a full continental, you're moving over to a 2.5, that ridge between a continental grip and an Eastern forehand grip, right? That's going to help you later on with what we call a right to left. So that's the second one to look out for. The third one is a common one, is we often forget about the tossing arm. We play tennis, we just think about the hitting arm, but make sure you're not over rotating, and you want to be thinking of controlling that tossing arm where it comes into your body. So you may be thinking going wrist to wrist, going arm over arm, finishing that letter X. The fourth one is going too fast in the beginning. If you throw the rhythm off here, the toss can go a little haywire. Okay, it can prevent your ability to develop that nice right to left. A lot of things can go wrong, and this has almost nothing to do with the power supply. Remember, just go nice and slow in the beginning, all right? Get yourself in a good position to then start a nice fluid arm action on your serve. And the last, fifth common thing to avoid is having a too tight a grip or have a tight hitting arm, all right? When your arm is tight, then you're going to be forcing, you're going to be muscling it, and you're not going to get into those key power positions, which are going to ultimately help you develop a more effortless power on your serve. So let us know in the comments if you have any of these common problems, if you've worked through them, what fixes helped you, and if you found any of these helpful. Thank you for watching.